All right, welcome back to DWeb Decoded, a Filecoin Foundation podcast. We've got a special series here in Davos for WEF 2025. I'm your host, Aaron Stanley, and thanks for joining us for this special series. I'm joined by Ann Dunkin, who is the Chief Information Officer at the Department of Energy for about 6 more hours here until inauguration tonight. But Ann, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Really looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got the official fireside chat going here and everything. We've got a beautiful backdrop of the scene of the town behind us. We've got the Congress Center, the World Economic Forum right behind us as well. But Ann, I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us really quick about kind of your career and your role at the Department of Energy for a few more hours anyway.
Yeah, sure. Great. Yeah, absolutely. So as you alluded to, I'm the CIO of the Department of Energy from the Biden administration. So when the inauguration hits at noon in the U.S., then I will no longer be the CIO. So just a little bit about energy. We have 4 main mission areas. We do nuclear security, nuclear non-proliferation. We build nuclear weapons. We have, and we also clean up from the Manhattan Project. That's still going on.
Oh, really?
Yes, really.
Oh, wow. That's
yeah,
like 80
and it's going to be
later.
going on for a while.
Okay, fair enough.
Especially up at Hanford, there's a lot more work to do. And a few other places. Secondly, we are responsible for the power grid in 36 states. So we keep the power on in much of the United States. We sell bulk power that's generated by other parts of the United States government. Third, we run the 17 national labs, which are the engine of innovation for the United States. So we do everything from basic research, a lot of physics labs, to applied research, national security to open science, everything in between. And then finally is the part of the mission that is sort of most changeable, which is supporting, right now we're supporting the clean energy transition, and I hope DOE continues to support the clean energy transition over the next few years. We've put out a tremendous amount of money in grants and loan guarantees to get the clean energy transition moving in all sorts of technologies.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So looking back on your last 4 years in this role, what would you say are maybe your perhaps signature accomplishments, or what are maybe the initiatives that the programs you worked on that you feel like are going to have the most kind of downstream impact?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about it in two kind of views of the world, inside DOE and outside DOE. So inside DOE, so when I took my job, there had been 6 CIOs in as many years. So there'd been a tremendous amount of turnover. So I did a lot of work with my team to build up a leadership team with some staying power, some permanence that I know will still be there when I get back, and to really build up the relationships, to be there when I leave, and build up the relationships across DOE, so that we can work as one DOE when we look at IT, because there are many, many folks in DOE who do IT. Most of them work on a dotted line to me, not a direct line. So it was really important to build up those relationships. And we've been able to do things like get a contract issued for all of us with Microsoft instead of the 30 some odd contracts we had before. We saved, $200 million on that contract.
Oh, wow.
So big money to be saved, but also more efficiency by working together. We can share things and be more efficient and serve the public better, serve the taxpayer. So internally, we did a lot of things like that. And externally, we really deepened our relationships with our allies around security. So we spent a lot of time working with our European allies, our allies in Australia, our allies in Canada, to really have a security standpoint where we all know what each other are doing in the energy sector, and we can help each other out because our collective defense is really important. So we are all more secure when we share information and work together.
Amazing. Thank you for that. So we're especially in Davos here, it's very sort of, it's very visible that we are living in a world of just lots of fast moving technologies. There's lots of digital transformation that's happening faster than we can really understand what's going on. We have, first there was blockchain, and then it's AI, and then now people are talking about quantum computing and all these things, and it's kind of overwhelming, right? But I would love for you to maybe think about, or maybe riff a little here about how do you see in this particular role that you've had at the Department of Energy, obviously energy is a very critical component to like the rest of the U.S. economy, right? Which is why there's a department that exists to sort of oversee and help steward this. But what are some of maybe like the core, I don't want to necessarily say threat vectors because it's not necessarily like these are like bad things, right? But like what are maybe some of the core like opportunities and threats that you see in your line of work directly related to some of the advancements, the rapid advancements, some of these technologies?
So great. That's a great question. So first of all, at DOE, we are, as I said, the engine of innovation for the country, much of the world. And so we're on the cutting edge of AI, quantum. We have the 3 fastest high-performance computers in the world at DOE right now.
Oh, wow.
We had the first one and several below, but we just commissioned 2 new ones. So we now have the fastest 3 in the world. And so we have a lot of opportunities at DOE to leverage the research we do across DOE to advance AI, to advance quantum. We're doing basic research in both those areas as well as applied research in AI. There's not a lot of applied research in quantum computing, but there's quantum sensing, some other things that are already applied within DOE. And so those technologies together, from an opportunity standpoint, if you go back to energy, those are technologies that are going to help us advance the clean energy transition. Because when you look at all science now is computational, right? You can do science that looks very much like bench science, very physical. You got a big piece of equipment. But the fact is that research is done by making sure that you do all your analysis on a computer to begin with. So you're going to model that work, you're going to make some decisions, and then you're going to go to your physical devices. So quantum computing and AI are going to help us speed up that research. So we're going to be able to find better substrates for solar panels. We're going to be able to find better battery materials. We're going to be able to do those things faster. And we've actually already demonstrated that. Pacific Northwest National Lab did a project with Microsoft where they cut off several years of time in narrowing down the choices for battery materials by doing computation on using AI and quantum in advance. And then they had that shorter list of materials, which we then can go to the bench and test out. So those technologies are going to help us a ton. Now let's talk about the flip side, right? Any technology we get, the bad guys get too, right?
Right.
They're not, there are going to be nation state actors who are eventually going to have their own quantum computers. But the reality is that the way quantum's going to work is you're going to be able to go buy time on a quantum computer, and anybody will be able to do that, right? So the Microsofts of the world, Amazons, whoever it is, they're going to build their quantum computers. You're going to be able to buy time on it. So any bad guy can go use a quantum computer. So we have to really be concerned about quantum safe computing. So quantum resistant quantum resistant cryptography.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. And so things like that, any AI, quantum, high performance computing, any of those things, right, that we use, the bad guys can use to crack our system. So we constantly have to be looking at how people are going to use those solutions and how we're going to combat that. And so we can't shy away from using those technologies from a cybersecurity standpoint because we know that the adversaries will be, whether they're a nation state actor or just a criminal with a deep pocket who can go in and do that. So.
Yeah, I think that becomes kind of the scary component is okay, if it's one thing if it's a nation state, it's another thing if it's just a guy in his basement on a computer
right.
that can go and it can hack into he can hijack your vehicle or your fridge or your bank account or whatever it might be. But maybe talk a bit about like just how what are some of the? There's a lot of like with quantum computing. It's one of these things where every couple of years, like we get another cycle of information about quantum computing, and people start getting. It almost, to me, in my view, I kind of see it as like almost like a Y2K type thing, where like, oh no, like the sky is falling, like quantum computing's coming, all of our encryption's broken, the nuclear codes are going to be, the Bitcoin blockchain's going to be sort of, all the cryptography is going to be broken, and to what extent do you think that maybe some of this sort of I don't know, this fear or these reactions are perhaps rational, like they're grounded in reality, maybe, or maybe to what extent is some of this maybe okay, you're just sort of screaming like running around with your head cut off kind of thing.
Well, quantum is coming, right? And so when we do know that people are right now collecting things to encrypt later when they, to decrypt later when they can with quantum. So it's a real concern. NIST has released a number of algorithms for quantum safe encryption. We know that those algorithms are out there, and we need to get started implementing. We need to work with vendors to ensure that we can implement those, and we need to make sure vendors set up their architectures in a way that you can replace the encryption modules, right? So just like we used to build monolithic applications, and we said we really need to build applications that are decomposed, so that you can loosely coupled, so you can pull components in and out. You can upgrade things without having to upgrade the entire system. We need people to have encryption become modular too for their systems, so that it's easier to upgrade those modules if they get cracked. But it's a real concern. We definitely worry about it at DOE and the federal government. Certainly many people in the private sector worry about it as well. So while the sky might not be falling today, there are going to be people with great assets, deep pockets, who are able to get in there and have a quantum computer probably sooner than maybe some people would like. Interesting.
And I had another quick question about nuclear energy. You mentioned that, I actually didn't realize that the nuclear program falls underneath the remit of the Department of Energy. It makes sense. I just hadn't put those pieces together until you mentioned it. But I know under the Biden administration, there's been a pretty solid advancement, I think, both in terms of like policy and also just in terms of like narratives around nuclear energy. I think, previously it kind of had this boogeyman type, it's Chernobyl, it's 3 Mile Island, it's all this kind of bad, nuclear wasteland type connotation, right? But it seems like the both the narratives and the actual substantive policies around nuclear energy have really kind of advanced in a positive direction. And maybe you can comment a bit on that, on kind of what the status of the nuclear energy situation in the U.S. is right now.
Yeah, I think the reaction, in retrospect of many years, the reaction that we all had to 3 Mile Island, which was a fairly minor accident, to Chernobyl, which obviously was a more significant accident, but under much more questionable safety circumstances to begin with, was unfortunate, because if we had continued down the path using nuclear energy as we were, we would have a lot less problem with climate change now. And if you look at how many people have died because of nuclear accidents, it's tiny compared to how many people die because of pollution and are going to die because of climate change. So we can't fix that, but we can go forward and recognize that not only is nuclear safer than we thought, but the new nuclear technologies that we're coming out with, the small modular reactors, are extremely safe. They're far safer. They're also easier to build. You can build them in a factory. You can deliver them to a site and have them up and running very quickly. So the administration has been firmly behind the idea that we are going with an all-of-the-above solution for clean energy, and that nuclear is a key component to that. Nuclear provides stability to the grid when other renewables are up and down, and so it's a great foundational component for a clean energy grid.
And do we have any indication whether the new administration, incoming administration, is going to continue with those policies, or is that all still to be determined?
I haven't heard a lot about their nuclear policy per se. I'm sure I could find out how the incoming president feels about nuclear. But certainly their position on clean energy is not exactly the same as our position.
Fair enough. And Ann, I know you spend in your free time, I know you do a lot of like mentorship and working with young people, college students, this type of thing. And kind of totally different, unrelated question here, but just given some of these technological changes we've been talking about, and I know I was at a conference a couple of months ago with college students and from probably 35 different universities, blockchain clubs from different universities in the U.S. And I was really impressed by like just the kind of the savviness and the hunger that these kids had, but there's also a bit of kind of uncertainty and confusion. We're like, okay, like the playbook for you just go to go to college, get good grades, get a good job is not really the same as it used to be, right? And a lot of these kind of middle, maybe perhaps like middle management jobs are being outsourced to AI, and there's a bit of anxiety around some of this type of stuff. So, I mean, just given your positioning at perhaps the intersection of a lot of these different technologies and even like kind of geopolitics and energy, like what are you, how are you counseling, people, like younger people who are trying to figure out, okay, what's maybe the best career path, or how should I be positioning myself for success in this this world that's to come, that's going to be just transforming very quickly, faster than we can really keep up with it.
Yeah, it is an interesting time, and it has been for a while, I think, for college graduates. I was talking to a young man last couple nights ago who said he's in his 30s, and he said his job didn't exist when he was in college. So I think that first of all, flexibility is going to be hugely important, right? The idea that you're going to keep learning and how that looks. Who knows? People talk about micro degree credentials. They talk about going back to school. But regardless of how it is, people need to continue to learn. That's always been true, but even more so now. But when I talk to college students, one of the most important things I say to them is that they absolutely should not get too comfortable where they are. So if you get a job and it's really comfortable and you're not learning a lot, you need to move on, because if you don't keep learning, you're going to get left behind. And the other thing is, sort of directly related to that is, if someone offers you an opportunity, or if you see an opportunity you want to go after that's kind of scary, that's probably the right one, right? Don't go. I mean, and I think we all know the difference between I'm nervous about that job, but I can do it, or I think I can do it, and I can't possibly do it. So I'm not saying people should go take the jobs they can't possibly do, but that job that feels like a stretch. When I went from the job I had before the EPA to the EPA, I had a massive increase in the scope of my job. And, I could have said, oh, I can't do that. But I was like, well, I know how to do this job, and it's just doing it at a bigger scale. But was it scary? Yeah. And that's the kind of job that they should go after, is do those things that stretch them, that make them a little nervous. Those are the ones that are going to really make their careers.
Yeah, and the focus on is always learning, right? I think that's so critical, and it's easier to learn now than ever, right? Mm-hmm. The resources are there. It's there's no gatekeeper to the information anymore, right?
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of like how much do you want it, how much are you willing to apply yourself, and watch the YouTube videos or take the course or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Well, Ann, I really appreciate you coming on our show here. It's been a real pleasure meeting with you, chatting with you here, and on this beautiful morning, and wishing you all the success in the next few hours of your current job, and also in your next endeavors to come. So thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back here soon with another episode.